That was Michael Anthony, okay? 100% dedicated, never did anything to hurt those guys, and they tried to hurt him again and again and again. For Eddie to...
After years of silence, 70-year-old Michael Anthony, former bassist for the legendary rock band Van Halen, has finally broken his silence to reveal the shocking truth about his departure from the band and his chaotic relationship with Eddie Van Halen. This revelation may come as a surprise, but it's a story that needs to be heard. Michael Anthony developed a love for music at an early age, thanks to his father, a trumpet player who deeply influenced him. Following in his father's footsteps, young Michael learned to play the trumpet, and music quickly became a major part of his life. Born in Chicago, Illinois, Anthony spent his early years moving from place to place until his family finally settled in Arcadia, California, in 1966, just next door to Pasadena, hometown of Alex and Eddie Van Halen. This move would prove pivotal, setting the stage for his future in music. During his school years, Anthony showed interest in both music and sports. From 1967 to 1969, he attended Dana Junior High School in Arcadia, where he joined the school's marching band and honed his musical skills. He was also active in track and field and played as a catcher in baseball, showing promise as an athlete. However, his passion for music ultimately won out. By high school, Anthony was fully dedicated to his craft, spending countless hours practicing and improving as a musician. After graduating from Arcadia High School in 1972, he found himself increasingly immersed in the world of music. Before joining Van Halen, he explored his musical path through various local bands. As a teenager, Anthony initially wanted to play guitar, but since many of his friends already played guitar or drums, he chose to stand out by picking up the bass. A friend, Mike Hershey, gave him a Fender Mustang electric guitar, which Anthony modified by removing the two highest strings to use it as a bass. Later, his father gifted him a Victoria copy of a Fender Precision bass and a Gibson amplifier, giving him a more professional setup to grow his talent. Anthony admired legendary bassists like Jack Bruce of Cream, John Paul Jones of Led Zeppelin, and Harvey Brooks of Electric Flag, studying their styles to develop his own. Interestingly, although he was naturally left-handed, he taught himself to play the bass right-hand, a trait that made him even more unique. His musical journey began with a band called Poverty's Children, and he played in several other groups such as Black Opal, Bulls, and most significantly, Snake. Snake was a three-member band where Anthony played bass and sang lead vocals, performing covers and some original songs. They often shared the local stage with Van Halen's early band, Mammoth. In one fateful concert at Pasadena High School, Snake opened for Mammoth. When Mammoth's PA system failed, Anthony generously offered Snake's equipment so the show could go on. This small act of kindness would unexpectedly open the door to his future. While studying music at Pasadena City College, Anthony once again crossed paths with Eddie Van Halen, who was also attending the school. Around this time, Mammoth was undergoing a lineup change. Their bassist Mark Stone had left the group. Eddie and Alex invited Anthony to jam with them, and he was instantly blown away by their talent. Their chemistry was undeniable, and after just one session, the Van Halen brothers asked him to join the band. Though some accounts suggest Anthony consulted his Snake bandmate Tony Cajano before making a decision, Anthony later clarified on his official website that he never hesitated. He accepted the offer immediately. This version of events became the widely accepted truth, marking the beginning of his legendary career with Van Halen. Michael Anthony had initially planned to continue his studies at a college in Santa Barbara after completing his time at Pasadena City College. However, once he became part of Van Halen, everything changed. His dedication to the band was so strong that he chose to drop out of school just before earning enough credits for his degree. Instead of pursuing traditional academic path, he poured all his energy into making music with Van Halen, a decision that would soon pay off in ways he could never have imagined. In 1974, Eddie Van Halen, Alex Van Halen, David Lee Roth, and Michael Anthony officially became known as Van Halen. Originally performing under the name Mammoth, they were forced to change it after discovering that another local band had already claimed the name. The newly christened Van Halen worked tirelessly to build a name for themselves, playing in clubs across Los Angeles and West Hollywood. Their talent eventually caught the attention of Gene Simmons from the band Kiss, who helped them record a 29-track demo. Their big break came in 1977 when they signed with Warner Brothers Records. On February 10, 1978, they released their self-titled debut album, Van Halen, which marked their explosive entry into the rock world. At the beginning, Anthony was considered a full member of the band, sharing 20% of the band's debts and earnings, including merchandise profits, alongside manager Noel Monk. However, things took a difficult turn in 1984 during the band's album tour. Tensions escalated, and Anthony was pressured by Roth and the Van Halen brothers into signing away his future songwriting credits and royalties. The agreement was made retroactive, meaning he also lost rights to earnings from the hugely successful 1984 album. According to Noel Monk, the deal was grossly unfair. He later wrote that if he had been in Anthony's shoes, he would have refused and even skipped that night's performance in protest. But Anthony didn't argue. Instead, he signed the documents while the other three members stood over him, costing him millions of dollars. Despite this betrayal, Anthony remained loyal to Van Halen for many years. Between 1978 and 1998, the band released 11 studio albums, along with a live album in 1993 and 2 greatest hits compilations. Outside of Van Halen, Anthony also lent his support to other musicians. In 1988, he helped produce a demo for his brother Bobby Lee's band, Asylum Suite, which had been active since 1984 and featured vocalist Michael Thomas Fire. Anthony's guidance helped them refine their sound and progress in their career. By 1996, rumors swirled that Anthony had been fired from Van Halen, though he continued to work with the band. These speculations lingered for years until he officially left after the 2004 reunion tour with Sammy Hagar. In reality, his role in the band had already started to diminish during the recording of Van Halen 3 in 1998. Unlike previous albums, Anthony only played bass on 3 tracks, while Eddie handled bass duties on 6 others. Despite his limited involvement, Anthony was still credited as a songwriter and joined the band on tour that year. He also participated in 3 reunion attempts with David Lee Roth in 1996, 2000, and 2001, even contributing to early versions of songs that would later appear on A Different Kind of Truth. During this period, he remained connected to the band through newsletters and interviews, but eventually faded from the public eye. His next and final appearance with Van Halen came during the 2004 reunion tour before he left the band for good. After his departure, Michael Anthony continued his musical journey with Sammy Hagar, frequently joining him on solo tours. He performed with 2 of Hagar's bands, the Waboratas and Los Tres Gusanos. In 2002, during the Sam and Dave tour that featured both Hagar and David Lee Roth, Anthony made surprise guest appearances at several shows. He wasn't the only former Van Halen member involved. Gary Sherwin, another former vocalist, also appeared, sometimes even sharing the stage with Anthony. That same year, Anthony formed a supergroup called Planet Us with Hagar, Neil Schon, Dean Castronovo, and Joe Satriani. The band recorded 2 songs, Psycho Vertigo, which was intended for the Spider-Man movie soundtrack but ultimately wasn't included, and Peephole, both of which were later released on Hagar's 2008 solo album Cosmic Universal Fashion. In late 2003, Eddie and Alex Van Halen decided to reunite with Sammy Hagar for a 2004 tour, but their original plan excluded Michael Anthony. When Hagar learned this, he refused to join unless Anthony was included. Faced with no alternative, the Van Halen brothers reluctantly allowed Anthony to return, but under new terms. He had to accept a contract with reduced royalties and limited participation. This agreement only lasted for the duration of the tour, meaning Anthony was no longer considered a permanent member of the band. Van Halen released a compilation album titled The Best of Both Worlds, which included some of their greatest hits along with 3 brand new tracks. However, Michael Anthony was not involved in the creation of these new songs. He neither wrote nor recorded bass parts for them. His only contribution was providing backup vocals. In later interviews, Anthony revealed that he hadn't spoken to Eddie or Alex Van Halen since the 2004 tour, except for a brief encounter with Alex at the funeral of the band's drum technician, Greg Emerson. He also opened up about why he believed his relationship with the Van Halen brothers deteriorated. Anthony speculated that their displeasure with Sammy Hagar's business ventures, like his Cabo Wabo tequila brand, may have extended to him as well, especially after he launched his own hot sauce line. He believes this could have been a contributing factor in their final fallout. In the summer of 2006, Anthony toured with Sammy Hagar in a group called The Other Half, which performed classic Van Halen songs spanning both the Roth and Hagar eras. But in September that year, Eddie Van Halen made a shocking announcement. He had replaced Anthony with his own son, Wolfgang Van Halen, as the band's new bassist. Then in February 2007, Van Halen announced a tour with their original frontman, David Lee Roth, starting on September 27, 2007. Anthony later shared that he learned about his replacement through the internet, expressing frustration at the fact they called it a Van Halen reunion when not all original members were involved. David Lee Roth agreed with Anthony's sentiment during a press conference, calling the tour a revision rather than a reunion. Despite being excluded from the tour, Anthony continued to perform alongside Hagar. On February 25, 2007, the two appeared on live national television during a NASCAR pre-race show, where Anthony jumped on stage to perform Hagar's hit, I Can't Drive 55. A few weeks later, on March 12, 2007, Van Halen was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But the event was notable for who didn't show up. Eddie Van Halen was in rehab, while Alex Van Halen and David Lee Roth also chose not to attend. Only Michael Anthony and Sammy Hagar were present to accept the honor, making them the sole representatives of the band at the ceremony. Following his departure from Van Halen, Anthony stayed active in the music scene. He joined forces with his longtime friend Sammy Hagar to form a new band called Chicken Foot, which also featured guitar virtuoso Joe Satriani and Red Hot Chili Peppers drummer Chad Smith. Anthony played bass and provided backing vocal for the band. Their debut album was released in Europe on June 5, 2009, and in North America on June 9, 2009, receiving a positive reception from fans eager to hear Hagar and Anthony collaborate again. The band followed up with a second album, Chicken Foot 3, released on September 27, 2011. In 2014, Anthony joined another supergroup with Hagar called Sammy Hagar and the Circle. This lineup included guitarist Vic Johnson and drummer Jason Bonham. With The Circle, Anthony continued to perform classic rock hits from Van Halen, Led Zeppelin, and Hagar's solo work. Though Anthony and Eddie Van Halen had a history filled with both musical brilliance and personal conflict, their relationship became increasingly strained over the years. Anthony's rock-solid bass playing and signature backing vocals were essential to Van Halen's sound in the early years, but behind the scenes, tensions grew. By the time of the 2004 reunion tour with Hagar, Anthony was asked to sign away licensing rights and accept a pay cut, marking a deep fracture in his relationship with the Van Halen brothers. That fracture widened in 2006 when Eddie replaced him with Wolfgang, effectively ending Anthony's tenure in the band. Reflecting on this painful period, Anthony expressed regret that he and Eddie never reconciled before Eddie's death in 2020. The unresolved issues continued to weigh on him. Still, after Eddie's passing, Anthony found a sense of peace through an unexpected reconnect with Wolfgang Van Halen. In 2023, he attended a performance by Wolfgang's band, Mammoth WVH. The meeting offered Anthony some much-needed closure, allowing him to honor the musical legacy he shared with Eddie while beginning to mend ties with the Van Halen family. Though marked by both collaboration and conflict, the relationship between Michael Anthony and Eddie Van Halen has found some healing in the years since Eddie's passing. Underscoring the enduring impact of their shared musical journey, Michael Anthony has finally opened up about the real reasons behind his departure from Van Halen. Was it to unburden himself or simply to clear up long-standing speculation? No one knows for sure, but what matters is that he finally let the cat out of the bag. After years of silence, Anthony, who played bass for the iconic rock band for decades, is now speaking candidly about the personal and professional issues that led to his exit. For a long time, fans have speculated on what really happened, and now Anthony is providing some clarity. A major source of tension, according to Anthony, was the way Eddie Van Halen treated him. Eddie often criticized his skills, telling him he wasn't good enough and insisting he had to instruct him on every note to play. These repeated remarks chipped away at Anthony's confidence and made him feel like Eddie never truly believed in him, not just as a musician, but as a person. Anthony described the criticism as deeply personal, revealing that no matter how hard he tried, he never felt seen or appreciated in Eddie's eyes. At one point, Eddie even told him that if he ever left the band, his career would be over. Those words were painful, but Anthony refused to let them crush his spirit. His love for music remained stronger than the negativity he faced. He made it clear that he wasn't going to let someone else's opinion derail his passion. Contrary to popular belief, Anthony didn't leave Van Halen to start Chickenfoot. The decision to walk away came from a culmination of rising tensions and internal dysfunction within the band. He felt pushed out rather than choosing to leave on his own. His later collaboration with Sammy Hagar and the formation of Chickenfoot came from a desire to find joy in making music again, not as a statement against Van Halen, but as a continuation of his lifelong dedication to music. Even though his time with Van Halen ended on difficult terms, Anthony chose to remain positive about the experience. He expressed gratitude for the years spent with the band and the music they created together. His departure may not have been by choice, but he continued to pursue his passion regardless. Michael Anthony has proven that he didn't need Van Halen to continue his career. Despite the personal and professional challenges, especially with Eddie, he has stayed true to his love of playing bass and creating music. His focus remained on what mattered most, the music itself. The strained relationship between Anthony and Eddie Van Halen came to a head during the band's 2004 tour. Tensions were exacerbated by Eddie's well-documented struggles with substance abuse and disagreements over Sammy Hagar's business ventures, particularly his Cabo Wabo tequila brand. Because Anthony supported Hagar's ventures and even launched his own hot sauce brand, he believes this may have added to the friction. During this period, Anthony was forced to give up his licensing rights to the Van Halen name and accept a pay cut, clear signs that his status in the band was rapidly declining. In 2006, Eddie made the surprise decision to replace Anthony with his son, Wolfgang Van Halen. This move blindsided Anthony, who had dedicated so many years to the band. Eddie later claimed Anthony had effectively left the band to pursue other projects with Hagar, a justification Anthony disagreed with. Despite the professional fallout, Anthony expressed deep regret that he and Eddie never reconciled before Eddie's death in 2020. In interviews, he admitted that they hadn't spoken and that the unresolved nature of their relationship continues to trouble him. The lingering issues between them, marked by both creative disagreements and personal misunderstandings, remained unresolved until the very end. Michael Anthony's story is one of loyalty, frustration, passion, and perseverance. His experience with Van Halen, especially his complex relationship with Eddie, paints a picture of both musical magic and emotional strain. Yet through it all, Anthony has continued doing what he loves most, making music.